Welcome back to our halftime show for the PAC Basketball Game of the Week, brought to you by Health Markets. We're now joined by head coach of the Grove City men's basketball team, Coach Steve Lamie. Coach, first off, thanks so much for joining us. I know it's early in the year, but I just want to hear, what it's been like and some of those early season takeaways that you've had so far for your team this season.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jack. It's like a work in progress, I would say, because we lost a few seniors that definitely contributed to the team last year, and then we don't have any seniors this year, and so that junior class, sophomores last year, have had to step into leadership roles, which maybe they weren't prepared for, although I would say that they've done a great job, especially like just during the summer, I think, with their reading, with some reading lists and tried to train them in those that wanted to be captains. We gave them information and material to look at. And then they basically interviewed for the position in September. And from there, we got Chase Yarborough. But now he's the guy with the C on his jersey, but we have other guys that have stepped into that role, even though they may not be official captains. And I would say Russ Gump is one of them, Mike Christensen being another.
Well, definitely, I think a very important way to go through that process. I mean, not to mention you're getting them ready for the real world, going through an interview process. So it's kind of twofold. I like that. That's very good. And not to mention keeping their minds fresh during the summer, because I think we can both agree those 3 or 4 months they have off, that's a long time to be away from the book. So I get that totally. But I want to get into your team because you guys each and every single year are in the mix for a PAC championship. And you've really separated yourselves, I think, with the offense that you run, the flex offense. And I want to hear just how you're able to keep that offense so fresh each and every single year when other teams in the conference know exactly what they're going to be getting going up against you guys.
Yeah. Um, the offense is older than me, probably, so it's old. But we're the only people I think in the country that really use it on a possession by possession basis. And I won't get into why we've done it. And this is our ninth year running it. But the way it's fresh is that within the offense, everybody on our team can score. Now, not in every position, but there are opportunities to score from the 3-point line. There are opportunities to drive in it. There are opportunities to post up, to have pull-up jump shots. And so everyone on the team is a contributor on the offensive side of the floor. Whereas if we would run like a dribble drive offense, which is probably the most common offense that we see every night, half of our team wouldn't be able to contribute, maybe on offensive rebounding or screening, but in terms of scoring, everybody has that option in our offense. So there's incentive for all of our players to really work hard on their offensive skills. But the other thing is, with all the screens that we set, there are more than one option, and so it's akin to Bobby Knight's motion offense, although it's a little bit more patterned in that, yes, you can cut through, but you can also reject the screen. There are multiple ways of coming off the screen, different angles, and to different spots, and so that I think keeps it fresh.
Well, you guys definitely have perfected it, I would say. I mean, you guys have ran that so well over the years, and it's obviously paid off for you. And not to mention this year, it's also paid off having a really nice, strong start to the season. And you've played in some very close games recently. 4-point win against Westminster, a 1-point loss to Franciscan. Being exposed to that maybe early season close ball game type of feel in the conference help you guys out throughout the rest of the season?
Yeah, well, I think it's helpful in that with a young team, you want to develop confidence, and it didn't help our confidence losing in the last game, play of the game against Franciscan, but we learned from it, and it was all turnovers. It was really turnovers, and give Franciscan credit for that. But when we won the close game, it was our next game against Westminster. Well, we didn't have those turnovers, and so they help us in knowing what we have to do, like at the end of the game, which is we're not going to do anything differently, but it's being consistent in that execution. So we may not run a special play, but we know that we have like 10 different options within the offense to score near the end of a game. And the fundamentals are key. Like we want to be as fundamental, that's jump stopping, pivoting, passing at the beginning of the game as we are at the end of the game. But oftentimes there is um, because of fatigue and maybe it's because of nervousness, okay, or you're playing in the moment and you lose your fundamentals because of the pressure of the game or the pressure that you put on yourself. Well, we've gone through that, and so we can talk about that and say, look, it's all about the standard. It's all about playing the fundamentals. It's all about, and so but it's hard to mimic that in practice. You have to have it in a game where you're actually wearing a uniform and somebody is trying to beat you.
I want to dive into some of the players that you have on your team. Like you
Sure.
mentioned, no seniors on the roster, but
Yeah.
you bring back some of those leaders that you mentioned were sophomores and now juniors. You have Chase Yarborough, obviously, Jonah Bach, Ben Kano, and Russ Gump. I mean, what have they meant to this team and just this program as a whole?
All of them got significant time last year as sophomores, and so they and also some of them got significant time as freshmen, which is not something that you want as a coach. Of course, they're ecstatic that they're playing as freshmen, but that means you have holes in the upperclassmen ranks that a freshman would be able to beat them out. But they mean a lot because they have the experience. They know what doesn't work. And so they're not apt to make the same mistake again. And they can also hand down those lessons to our underclassmen.
Well, I want to get into some of those underclassmen. Mike Christensen's having a really nice season so
Yes.
far. What kind of lift has he provided offensively as just a sophomore?
Oh, a lot. And there's no mistake about that because he really worked hard on his game over the summer. And that's a lesson I think for any player is that you're just you're born with certain skills, certain talent, right? You have a DNA, right? But the hard work in the summer is where basketball players are made. And that's a classic example of just hard work paying off.
Well, I know that it's also started to trickle down into the freshman class. Some you have Isaac Cherry and Caleb Howler that
Yeah.
have also been really impressive, establishing themselves in the lineup. What have you liked from those two so far, especially with it being their first year of college hoops?
Mm-hmm. Uh, we also play, Jack, a unique defense in that we switch everything. And so there are certain rules that you have to be cognizant of. And early, I would say the first couple games, they were making a lot of mistakes. It was just, and not because they just weren't comfortable with it. But over the last couple games, those mistakes have been maybe halved. And that's big because they're starting to learn it. And the fewer mistakes they make, the better off our defense is going to be. So they're quick learners. And it's not easy for a freshman to play. Again, I liken it to playing as a freshman in high school, and you're playing against a senior in high school. That there's such an age difference and a maturation difference. It's the same thing in college, but I think you can do it and do it successfully if you're humble and you're coachable, and then you just grind it out, and you really have to put in an effort. And that's another thing that they've learned is that the intensity is so much higher in college than it is in high school. There's no way to prepare for it. You just have to tell them this is how it is. But they've been able to adjust fairly quickly. Now, I wish it were much faster, but you can't rush that uh, uh, way of teaching. We can't skip steps, I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And not to mention, that's why they have the weight room. The weight room is your best friend once you get to
Exactly.
college.
Good
But,
point.
Coach, it's been great to have you. Before we let you run for our PAC halftime show, I know you've been in charge of this program for a long time, 25 years. You've had a lot of success. And again, you've seen a variety of teams. But what is it about this year's team that makes them so unique and maybe stand out from other teams you've had?
There is, and maybe it's because the youth, but just kind of an innocence in and a willingness do it, to step out and to try it, I'm grasping for words, Jack, but it's a subjective thing where to stick your neck out and try it. It's almost like a leap of faith, and that's what I like about it.
Well, definitely have been a very strong start to the season for you and Grove City, and we really are excited for how the season unfolds for you all over at Grove City. Again, Coach, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jack.
That's Grove City head men's basketball coach Steve Lamie. Don't go anywhere, as we will have the second half of action coming up next on the PAC Sports Network.